So we're here with John Smee of Qualcomm. We're here to talk about wireless innovation. John, Mobile World Congress is buzzing. To get into all what you're doing on the kind of innovation and R&D front, I guess I wanted to start with, we have this 6G plenary coming up in Korea, I think, in the next week or two. Tell us a bit about how you're preparing and what you're kind of expecting there.
Yeah, so what's exciting about the 6G plenary, it's kind of this kickoff for this RAN workshop about 6G itself, the next kind of 2 years of study item, 2 years of work item, making sure we have a global specification ready in 2030. And it's that interesting reality, you see it here at the show, a lot of companies looking at how is wireless evolving, how is AI evolving, how does that all come together? And then we're looking longer term, what are going to be the network needs, the capacity needs? How is the user experience changing? XR, smartphones, laptops, the role of AI in driving wireless use cases, a lot of that's going to come together. So that 6G workshop next week, I'll be there in Korea as well, and it represents this kickoff to that global start of the 6G standardization so that we're ready globally with what's going to deploy in 2030.
Yeah, and everyone's going to be bringing their ideas, right, their concepts, their R&D. It's going to be super interesting just to see where people overlap, what settles, what gets picked out.
Absolutely, and it's a great idea when all these different technologies come together. Qualcomm's been working on it for many years, leading that foundational innovation, 4G to 5G, and now 5G to 6G. So it's really looking at what are the key techniques, both a mixture of evolution and revolution. What's going to drive that user experience, what's going to bring in new sorts of use cases, digital twins, RF sensing, and then that foundational evolution, enabling new spectrum bands, making improvements in existing bands as well, bringing that all together for a more operationally efficient cellular network, setting the world on stage for the 2030 to 2040 full decade of that wireless future.
Yeah, and when we're thinking about then, obviously the theme of the moment, the AI thing, how would you put that in the kind of foundational evolution? Is that more of a, on the revolution side? How do you bridge?
I would say AI kind of represents two parts. There's the role of how AI itself has a role in wireless, making wireless more efficient. Not only on-device AI, smarter networks, but that interchange between the network and the device, making sure the actual 6G air interface is AI native. At the same time, AI is also driving new use cases, new reasons for uplink traffic as well as downlink traffic. So we're not doing 6G just because people are watching streaming video. We're doing 6G globally because the traffic patterns are changing. AI is a great example of that. More user-generated content, more RF sensing, the mixture of on-device AI, and also exchanging information with the network. Think of where we're at today with large language models, moving in the future to video models. Imagine a world where RF sensing and goggles and video capture is all part of that transmission needs. So in my view, the role of communications is becoming incredibly important, just as computing is being transformed by AI across the cloud and devices even today.
Yeah, it feels like with obviously the excitement we have now with AI services, incredible, but it feels like we're just at the start of something that's going to be like epically big in some ways. It's text-based and it's takes a bit of time for the reasoning and to put it all out, but you can imagine the type of thing you're talking about, I don't know, video uplink or real-time analysis and interpretation, contextual services.
Absolutely, and it's an interesting thing where AI is going to be about empowering the person in terms of a smarter school, a better hospital, better education, better healthcare, all of those things coming together, transforming these industries. So how is a worker going to get more productive? How is AI involved in that? A lot of that comes down to what's the user's computing interface? Are they wearing AR goggles? The role of smartphones and computing, a lot of that's going to transform also then the role of AI in that communication side. So absolutely, we're on to kind of the early stages of AI and how it's going to transform the way people interact and even the role of IoT and new types of devices, all of them connected, all of them with compute, and all of them then needing this need to have that wireless communication side. So absolutely, it's a really interesting and exciting time because these use cases are evolving. Even every year at this show, a slightly different take on what's going to be the interest and application of how AI is making a role for the operator network, how it's changing, transforming devices as well.
Yeah, the device is really interesting. So obviously we talked a lot about XR, VR, AR.
Yeah.
That category of device, it is early and it's prototypes, but we kind of get a glimpse now that maybe, I don't know, you know better than me, but couple years hence, we could be looking at some pretty impressive, usable, consumable type headwear, I guess.
Absolutely, and you can see even the Meta XR glasses are great success in the market, partly because it hit that right mixture of form factor, all-day wearability, and starting to bring in that multimedia functionality. And so the interesting thing is the role of the cell phone, the role of communication between the device and the network, leveraging that link from, say, Wi-Fi link between the glasses and a smartphone. And that's only one example of that communication side pairing with the XR headset. So in my view, as that continues to change and that value is brought to the consumer, it's really going to change how that communication needs keep increasing.
Yeah, so let's get in a little bit to the network evolution and going to this 6G RAN, I guess we could think of it as. Obviously, there's a bunch of things to talk about. I wanted to ask you in the first case about what people call FR3, the proposed FR3 bands and Giga MIMO and all that sort of. How would you call that? Upper mid-band or?
Yeah, I would refer to it as upper mid-band. So if we look at 5G, the 3.5 gigahertz mid-band brought a huge amount of capacity to cellular networks. And it kind of brought in this era of basically unlimited data. As we look to 6G, that a need for capacity is incredibly growing as well. And so as part of that, how can we use that same footprint on the cell side and bring in new technologies in 6 gigahertz and 7 gigahertz, between 7 and 8 gigahertz. So a lot of that spectrum band, how can we bring in the same footprint on the cell side? And the answer is Giga MIMO, using within the same physical size antenna, using more antenna elements at the base station side, more antenna elements at the device side, enabling that communications link to bring even more capacity into the 6G era. And it's an interesting one too, because this new band is a new opportunity to bring other RF innovation, other improvements in end-to-end efficiency for that wireless system operation.
Yeah, and we're talking big channels here, right, in those bands. What, 400 megahertz?
Well, whether it's, it could be as wide as 400 when we're looking at the end-to-end system, and then in the end, how it ends up getting allocated 200 megahertz. Basically, the operators will put to use any spectrum they're able to get for that IMT 6G spectrum. And so in our view, designing for a wider channel, designing for new ways of doing feedback and AI between the network and device, and making sure that spectrum efficiency is as high as it can be. So we're always making sure we're using the spectrum resources super efficiently.
Yeah, I want to take you the completely other way now. Like a lot of everyday users, like myself, like everyone I know, honestly, obviously they love performance and capacity, but they also want coverage. You know, they want stuff to work just at the edge and around the corner, and when they're in their car or wherever they are. How can 6G help us there?
Yeah, when we look at coverage, if we, just like I said, the 5G was really about capacity, a key point in 6G is improving coverage. And for us, a lot of that work goes down to the lower bands below 1 gigahertz, between 1 and 2 gigahertz, the so-called frequency division duplexing or FDD bands. So a lot of different innovation types that we're bringing into 6G are going to enable that 6G FDD waveform to be more efficient, higher spectrally efficient. So what are we doing on the actual physical implementation of that link? And so what's exciting about that is we're pairing then that coverage capability of the low bands and also having that smooth upgrade path on the infrastructure with bringing in more capacity. So this mixture of coverage and capacity is going to be core to unlocking these 6G user experiences.
Yeah, it's good because I think it wasn't ignored in 5G at all, but it wasn't maybe given enough attention because obviously we wanted to get TDD and mid-band running. But that is the coverage, isn't it? That's how we that's how we connect, that's what we camp on.
Absolutely, and so that role of that like TDD focused 3.5 gigahertz, in 5G era, there was not a lot of significant reworking of FDD from 4G to 5G. So indeed, that is a big opportunity as we move from 5G to 6G, recognizing that, hey, we have to design this for the next decade. So we have, as we mentioned, a few years of standardization in front of us, and it's a chance to really rework how we're designing that FDD so that it pairs well with these TDD bands and brings that net overall user experience.
Yeah, like a full system enhancement. I'm looking forward to that. Let me bring you to AI native RAN, AI native radio, how you want to call it. How are you framing that? I mean, there's, on the one hand, we have two ends of the link negotiating a channel on the fly all the time. On the other hand, we have a lot of guardrails and things to put in. What's your sort of feeling there? How are you framing that?
Yeah, we're looking at AI in a couple different ways. There's the way that we're actually making the link itself more efficient. Something like feedback, channel state feedback between the device and the network, well, we can improve that based on AI. Think of moving from a more statistical framework where you're modeling the average and distribution to being more predictive, where you're modeling the actual physical reality that user experiencing now, and what are they going to experience in the immediate future. So that ability to have predictive performance on that link side. At the same time, AI is also enabling us to take a fresh look at some of the operational aspects, making sure the network itself and the device are holistically operating as efficiently as possible. So whether that's orchestration or bringing an approach to design a digital twin of the RF waveform and RF environment, we can then use AI to make the overall system as efficient as possible. So it's interesting because it's coming at a couple different layers of abstraction, all the way to how we're looking at security and new frameworks in 6G to make sure it's serving that next era of computing needs, next era of device types.
John, good luck in Korea. I'm sure you're turning up with, all your PhDs and your research behind you. Great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Gabriel. Great to have this conversation.